YouTube has come a long way since its start, bringing in content creators of many varieties. No matter who you are, there's someone on this platform whose content will cater to your needs. Gaming, politics, horror video essays, and then there's vlogging. A brief view into someone's life as they bring you along with them and their day-to-day activities. Love it or hate it, it's a popular genre. A controversial subgenre under this umbrella is family channels. These channels are typically run by parents who are essentially broadcasting an internet reality show of their family. Many of these channels have faced loads of criticism from people who feel it is exploitative to film every moment of their kids' life for profit. The worst among this genre is 8 Passengers, a channel that started as a family-friendly production, but later turned out to be doing horrific things behind the scenes. Join me as we explore the dark and terrifying story behind 8 Passengers. In 2016, Ruby Franke, a mother of 6 children, started a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. It started as a fun way to document the family's life events, and as far as we could see, everyone seemed to be having fun with it. The viewers loved the content as well, tuning in to keep up with their videos they posted several times a week. At the peak of the channel, they amassed over 2 million subscribers, and the family was making pretty good money doing it. But as time passed, the viewers began to worry about the children involved here, as there were some fairly questionable things going on.
Eve has been amazingly well behaved for being in town.
But you yelled at me.
Shh! The fact that I yell at my kids is a secret. We don't want our viewers to know. Right, Eve? Tell them how mommy never yells at you.
Although on its own, this just seems like a joke, it becomes apparent that there were some very dark things going on off camera, which is straight up terrifying considering some of the stuff they're willing to show on camera. One of the biggest areas of concern was the mother's complete lack of respect for the children's privacy. As if it weren't already enough for them to have nearly every waking moment documented for the world to see, Ruby seemed to go out of her way just to embarrass them for views. In this video, Ruby talks about her daughter's body hair, clearly embarrassing her.
She has been asking all summer if she can shave her legs and armpits, and I
never said that. I don't want to.
You don't?
No. Julie, you should shave your armpits.
I think your armpits need to be shaved more than your legs do.
Yeah.
And in another video, she's intruding on her son using the bathroom.
Tell me how comfortable it is. Like, close the door.
No, you can see through this. Please don't look.
Then put your. No, I'm not gonna look. I'm gonna scream the first time I use that clearly. Is it warm? Is it cozy?
Try next.
In a lot of her videos, she will purposely exploit her kids while they are feeling emotionally vulnerable to get an interesting moment for the camera, even when they obviously don't want to be filmed.
Julie has asked that we not show her face. Do you want to tell us what happened? I think I may have already explained it. Her face looks...
Many of these conversations shouldn't be happening on camera. They don't get any moments of privacy. Even the way that Ruby and her husband, Kevin, disciplined their kids was worrisome. Their disciplinary actions served little learning purpose and seemed to only exist as another way to create an attention-grabbing scene for the camera at the kids' expense. For instance, this moment where their son, Chad, has his phone taken away at dinner.
Chad, what are you doing over there? You no texting at the dinner table. No texting.
Let me see it. Let me see it.
No.
What is this? I really like you. Hold on.
I did not say that.
Confiscating the phone during dinner, I can understand, but reading the messages? Really? And even if some of you somehow don't see an issue with this, surely we can all agree that recording it and uploading it for all to see is completely unnecessary. All his peers at school are going to watch this. But this is probably the least bad part of their disciplinary style. It gets much worse. One method Ruby loved to use to punish her children was withholding food.
I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner. I just got a text message from Eve's teacher. Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch. Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
Bro, she's like 6. And in case you think there's just some sort of tough love or something, it's not. She clearly takes pleasure in doing this. Here's another clip of her doing the same thing to her other young child, Russell.
Sorry to tell you this, honey, but unless you find a friend who's willing to share some of their food with you, I don't think you're gonna be able to eat. I will have a wonderful, yummy snack.
She's literally taunting him here.
Russell, I'm really sorry. He sounded like he was going to cry.
And she thinks this is funny? It's not just withholding food either. She emotionally torments them too. Listen to what she does here.
The two youngest are showing long patterns of selfishness. We told them that this year they are not going to be visited by Santa.
And it wasn't just a false threat that she made either. In a later video she took during Christmas, we can see Russell looking devastated that everyone else got presents except for him and his little sister, Eve. And oh my god, poor Eve. I feel horrible for her. One of the most evil things Ruby did to Eve was this.
If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
Grandma will be so mad.
So what are you going to do?
Are you gonna cut anything else? No.
You promise? Look at Mama.
Absolutely vile. The things Ruby and Kevin did to their kids had nothing to do with teaching them anything. It was an abuse of power. Nothing more, nothing less. And this was just the stuff they were willing to show us on camera. As you'll see later on, the stuff going on off camera was truly sickening. As viewers continued watching this shit show, their worries about the kids increased. The final straw was when Ruby's son, Chad, revealed something that Ruby was hiding from her viewers. In a video called What We Haven't Told You, Ruby is explaining one of her rules about how when the kids get a privilege revoked, it takes them a minimum of 6 months to get it back. Chad is a little confused by this rule and says this.
Have I ever given something back less than 6 months?
I had my phone for like a day.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October.
7 months his bedroom was taken away for, and he was sleeping on a beanbag. The reason for this?
I woke Russell up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, Russell, and he's like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on. And I was like, we're not going to Disneyland. And he started crying and hitting me. And then he went back to bed in tears.
Messed up? Sure. Deserving of sleeping on a beanbag for 7 months? Absolutely not. And it gets worse. Listen to what Ruby says happened when they moved to a different house.
So a lot of you are like, hey, that's not fair because Chad got the lesser bedroom and Russell got the bigger bedroom. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room.
That's right. He was sleeping on the floor. What's bizarre about this is that Chad doesn't even seem all that upset about this. This kind of stuff has clearly been normalized for these people. This video is what crossed the line, and the audience viewing this couldn't just sit back and watch anymore. The viewers set up a petition to get CPS to investigate the family. CPS did end up investigating, but for whatever reason, the Franke family was cleared. There was not enough evidence of anything strong enough to fully pursue this. Although the law may have cleared them, the public did not. After all this went down, the 8 Passengers channel continued facing harsh criticism and losing support. Views dropped, sponsors dropped, their time was coming to an end. Ruby and Kevin did try to defend themselves, of course.
Long before we started YouTube, there were a lot of behavioral and emotional challenges that we were dealing with our kids. And we've been consulting with mental health and emotional health professionals for years. And the things that we show and share and the things that many of you are criticizing and calling abusive are actually things that mental health professionals have counseled us to do.
But this didn't do much to help. Ruby realized the gravy train had finally run out of steam, and in 2022, she had to transition into a new business, Connections.
Welcome to Connections. I'm Jody Hildebrandt. So glad you're with us. You can change. You can experience feelings of being whole, centered, liberated. Connections is the solution.
Connections is a mental health counseling service that a woman named Jody Hildebrandt started in 2012. The program enables you to take control and start living a healthier life, except it's a cult. Jody offers to teach life-changing principles and practices that she sells through a collection of online courses and one-on-one meetings. She's made bank selling all this, but it's clear she isn't qualified for mental health coaching. In fact, in 2012, she had her license to practice revoked for 18 months after she violated client confidentiality. She's a shady individual, to say the least. And you know what they say, birds of a feather flock together. So of course, Ruby Franke became Jody's business partner at Connections in 2022 after 8 passengers ended.
And we wanted to break that down and help you understand the control, the distorted control.
One thing you will hear Ruby and Jody mention a lot in these videos is distortion and truth. These are just buzzwords they use. Truth just means the principles that they are pushing, and distortion is just a fancy word for anything that they disagree with. You know how Andrew Tate constantly rambles about the Matrix? It's kind of like that. It doesn't really mean anything. So let's take a look at exactly what kind of truth principles these people are teaching.
Abstinence. Abstinence. But nobody says that anymore because everybody feels like they have a right to just do whatever they want. And then they have these consequences, these outcomes of STDs or pregnancy or you know,
Victim blaming. Nice.
My sister's child, I would say niece because that's how I know her as, but I don't know if that's offensive or not, has come out as transgender. Okay, so right there already, this gal is writing this question and she's already gone into control. She's saying, I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know if I call her niece. I don't know if I call her a nephew. I don't want to offend anyone. So already there's control. And you can't have truth, you can't have principles if you're in control.
In this video, she talks about this transgender person for like 10 minutes and uses a shit ton of words to basically say, hey, I'm not transphobic or anything, but yeah, fuck trans people. Nice.
If you end up pregnant, then you had sex first. Or if you were pregnant, you were taken advantage of. And what did you do to put yourself in this situation where you're being taken advantage of?
Oh, more victim blaming. Nice. So if you guys disagree with any of what you just heard, then yeah, according to Connections, you too are distorted. But no worries, you can buy Jody's masterclass program for just $200. Oh, and of course, it wouldn't be a Connection seminar without awful parenting advice.
And as long as you're living in my home, it is my job to know everything about you. You don't get to sneak, you don't get to hide, you don't get to have secrets. Not in my house. Do you see how loving that is?
No, Ruby, I really don't. You sound like a fucking psycho. But hey, don't take it from me. Take it from the actual clients of Connections themselves. Here's a few testimonies. I wouldn't trust this company. They use brainwashing tactics to manipulate you. They will ruin your family through mind control. They are an actual cult. I can't believe this woman is even still in practice. Needless to say, Ruby's transition to Connections did the business no favors. Unsurprisingly, even Ruby's children were turning against her. Ruby's eldest daughter, Sherry, was in college at around the time Ruby partnered with Connections, and she did not have pleasant things to say. In a podcast called Into the Light, Sherry said that her family left her feeling spiritually drained and that she did not support the extreme beliefs of Connections. Furthermore, she had completely cut ties with her family since 2022. Now, up to this point, everyone was talking about this. You've probably already seen a few videos about it yourself. The damage Ruby caused to her family was upsetting, and it was even more infuriating that she had been platformed again by Connections to continue spreading her negativity. But fortunately, very recently, Ruby's reign of terror came to an end. On August 30th, the full extent of what Ruby and Jody were doing was exposed when Ruby's 12-year-old son, Russell, escaped Jody's house through one of the windows. He had duct tape on his ankles and wrists, had open wounds, and appeared malnourished. He made his way over to a neighbor's house and asked them for food and water. The neighbor, terrified by what he was seeing, immediately called the police.
911, the address of your emergency. Okay, and the phone number you're calling from. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty. Okay, this boy has been... He needs... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
When the police arrived at the scene, they found Ruby's 10-year-old daughter, Eve, also inside the home in a similarly malnourished condition. Ruby and Jody were both arrested and charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse. The initial hearing was disturbing, with Ruby claiming that one of her kids was a predator who sexually abused their siblings and multiple other kids in the neighborhood. I want to make it clear that we don't know if this is actually true or not. Ruby is not the kind of person I'd blindly trust just because she said something. She might have just made this up thinking it would help lessen the charges or something. Furthermore, later court documents read that Jody Hildebrandt allegedly used rope to tie up Ruby's kids, causing them to be wounded. She then poured a mixture of honey and cayenne pepper on the wounds. The whole thing is just beyond fucked up. The bail hearing was supposed to take place on September 18th, but at this time it had been rescheduled to October 17th. For now, they're being held without bail, but in the meantime, we still have a lot to look at from the family members involved in the case. Ruby's eldest daughter, Sherry, has expressed relief that her mother was arrested. On her Instagram page, she wrote, "Today's been a big day. Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up." Jody Hildebrandt's niece also had something to say about this. In an interview on KUTV News, she talks about how she lived with Jody for a little under a year when she was a teenager, and details some of the abuse she endured during that time.
The things that I experienced while living with Jody, I experienced being tied, I experienced being duct taped, I experienced being blindfolded, I experienced severe isolation, I experienced severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse.
She finds it interesting to watch the world focus on Ruby when she feels Jody is equally responsible for all the harmful beliefs that Ruby perpetuated.
It's interesting to watch the world respond to her and kind of putting her at the forefront. And I understand that she's the mother of these children, and it makes sense. But the philosophies and the therapeutic modalities that she's using are Jody's.
And most interestingly, we have Ruby's husband, Kevin, who is not currently facing any charges, which is confusing because we've seen him participating in a bunch of these videos. Sure, he was never really the main face of the channel, but surely he knew what was going on and probably even partook in some of it. The main reason Kevin is staying legally safe for now is because he and Ruby separated about 13 months before her arrest. So, at the time of this most recent incident, he wasn't involved. Kevin has been mostly silent for legal reasons, and his lawyer is the one doing the talking. In an interview with Law and Crime Network, Kevin's lawyer shed some light on what is going on with Kevin at the moment. He claims Kevin had no idea that any abuse was going on since they'd been separated for over a year, and he had no contact with the kids at that time. We don't know why they were separated, but when the lawyer was asked about this was his response.
I probably shouldn't go into that. That's pretty private.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say they had a difference of opinion about their family.
Parenting? I know you can't talk about it, but is it that kind of where we're going?
Correct.
Furthermore, it seems Kevin's opinion is that Jody was the real mastermind behind this whole thing.
What does he say about Jody Hildebrandt?
That she's manipulated him in conjunction with Ruby, that she's been kind of the spearhead toward essentially destroying his life and destroying his family.
During the interview, Kevin's lawyer is asked about Kevin's involvement in the 8 Passengers channel, and the lawyer pretty much dismisses it by saying there were never any accusations of physical abuse at that time.
Your client was receiving criticism for quite some time over the parenting techniques. What is his response been to that?
There hasn't ever been an allegation that Kevin Franke has ever physically abused his children.
It's difficult for me to believe that Kevin had absolutely no idea what was going on. Sure, he may have been separated from the family for 13 months, but some pretty questionable stuff has been going on for years before that. I might believe that the abuse wasn't this horrific at the time that Kevin was involved with the family, but to say he was completely oblivious just doesn't seem right to me. There's something else going on here. The case is still ongoing, and new developments are being made every day. It's great that Ruby and Jody were finally arrested for what they were doing, but it's depressing that it took this long for something to be done. Once the court trials start up, I'm sure there will be many more details to dive into. Until then, all we can do is wait and stay up to date on the details. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the flip side. Also, a big thank you to DaStashy for making some of the new background music for me. Go check out his channel.